The diner was packed when a tired waitress accidentally spilled hot coffee on a little girl. The child screamed, and the mother went furious, humiliating the waitress in front of everyone. But just 20 minutes later, a man in a suit walked in, asking for that same waitress by name. No one knew who he was, or that what he was about to say would completely change her life forever. The bell over the diner door chimed like a small brass apology against the morning rush. Plates clinked, coffee makers sighed, and a radio hummed a scratched country song that somehow made everything seem ordinary even when it wasn't. Emily's hands moved faster than her feet, carrying a stack of menus in one hand, balancing a tray of greasy spoon breakfasts in the other, eyes always scanning for who needed what next. She had learned to move through chaos the way people learn to breathe. Without thinking, she'd been working double shifts for weeks. Her son, Jonah, had a cough that wouldn't quit, and the car needed new brakes. She had a nursing textbook tucked under the counter because she, of all people, believed in doing something that would change how she spent her life, make it steadier, safer, kinder. The class fees sat on a Post-it note beside her calendar. Pay by Sep 15. Life, though, had a way of moving the furniture of necessity around. Rent, Jonas's medicines, the oil change. It all pushed the dream back a little farther from reach. On a Tuesday that smelled of fried onions and lemon-scented cleaner, the diner was full earlier than usual. A couple by the window argued softly about electric bills. Mr. Donnelly, who came in at 6 sharp every morning, was already halfway through a crossword. A group of nurses from the clinic down the street laughed at a story Emily couldn't hear and didn't try to. The bell jingled as a mother and her little daughter slipped into a booth by the corner. The girl's hair was in 2 uneven pigtails, and she gripped a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. She was small enough to swing her legs like a pendulum under the table, the kind of small that made the rest of the world slow down. "Sit tight, honey," the mother told her, setting purse and phone on the table. "I'll grab coffee." Emily waved from the counter. "I'll be right over with your menu." The little girl, Sophie, looked up at Emily with eyes big as saucers and a face like an answering machine. She reflected everything back. Emily smiled, all exhaustion folded into the shape of gentleness. She liked kids. They didn't ask for explanations for why you were tired. They only wanted the plate in front of them and the small certainty that someone was paying attention. At the coffee station, the pot was stubborn. The waitress beside Emily, Marcy, swore under her breath and shoved more beans into the grinder. Emily was moving between stations, balancing 3 cups and a bowl of soup, when a voice cut across the din. "Excuse me, ma'am, can I have a crash of a tray?" The sudden, horrifying tilt of the coffee pot, the scalding brown arc of coffee like a small instant storm. It struck Sophie's arm, then her pajamas, then the stuffed rabbit. The little girl yelped, high, small, a sound that lodged in Emily's chest and did not move. Time thinned and slowed. The radio flickered into the background like a memory of another life. Oh, my God, oh, my God. The mother was a tornado of motion, snatching napkins, tossing the rabbit onto the table, phone already recording, face red with fury and worry. "Are you blind? Look what you did!" Emily dropped everything. Hands shaking, she grabbed a wet towel and pressed it to Sophie's arm. whispering nonsense that was supposed to mean comfort. "It's okay, sweetheart. It's okay. I'm so sorry." Her voice was small in the middle of a metallic chatter of utensils. Sophie's cry softened into an odd, small, stoic whimper. The napkins soaked the coffee like a sponge swallowing an apology. The mother's eyes were knives. "You have no idea what you're doing," she hissed to Emily, voice rising. "You're incompetent. Do you even have children of your own? How dare you?" For a moment, every eye in the diner pivoted toward them. The nurses' group, Mr. Donnelly's lined face, the couple at the window. The manager, Doug, came from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel, trying to smooth the situation with the economy of someone who'd seen worse. "Ma'am, we have napkins, ice." Doug started. "She burned my child," the mother said, lower now, a voice loaded with a rage that slipped into something like ice. "You're going to pay for this." Emily's cheeks were wet with something that wasn't only heat. Mortification pricked along the back of her neck like goose flesh. She had spilled coffee before. Small things, clumsy things, but never with a child involved. Her mind offered apologies by rote, the way a heart releases air. "I'll pay for anything. The hospital, the doctor, please, tell me where," she said. The mother scoffed, collected Sophie, and stormed toward the door, with red-rimmed eyes and a phone already punching numbers. "Don't bother," she said over her shoulder. "We're calling the police." She left a hush and a trail of static tension. Doug put his hand on Emily's shoulder like a steadying presence. "You go sit," he told her gently. "I'll take over." Emily sat as if she'd been folded into herself. Her hands were still shaking so hard she couldn't imagine gripping a pen, let alone a tray. Jonah's face flashed in her mind. 7 years old, freckled, the kind of boy who made pancakes for the dog and then cried that he'd hurt the dog's feelings. She imagined having to tell him the money had to go somewhere else. That fate had chosen for them again. People resumed their meals because they had to. The radio filled the air with light chords that promised nothing. Marcy loaded a dishwasher, trying to be invisible. Doug filed the incident into the type of calm people use to cope with chaos. Customer complaint. He offered Emily an extra break, sent someone to check on Sophie with a free bandage, and told her to call as soon as she could, if anything else happened. Emily tried to steady her breath, to make her palms stop sweating. She had been on the verge of tears, raw and exposed, when the bell over the door chimed again. A man walked in who looked like a man who owned suits and had borrowed the patience of 100 executives. He was in his mid-40s, maybe older. Brown hair threaded with silver at the temples, shoulders set, with the small arrogance of steady income. He scanned the room with the quick appraisal of someone used to looking for things. "Is there an Emily here?" he asked. The room tilted. Conversations dwindled, forks hesitated, and every head turned toward Emily like a wave moving across a field. She felt suddenly small and extraordinarily visible. "That's me," she said, voice caught, her shame and hope braided together awkwardly. She didn't know the man. She didn't know if he would shout, confirm someone's worst nightmare. She thought of the mother's recording and of that humiliating moment, replayed for hundreds of viewers she hadn't even met. "Mr. Carter," Doug said, with a respect he rarely meted out, unless the check was sizable. "Can I help you?" The man approached slowly. Up close, his eyes were the precise pale of someone who noticed details. He held out a hand to Emily. "Emily," he said, "I'm Thomas Carter. I own the Carter Diner chain. I happened to be in town this morning. I saw what happened on the security footage. I wanted to talk to the girl who was behind the counter." Emily's brain cluttered with disbelief. "You saw it?" "Yes." His voice was kind, like the tilt of a well-tuned instrument. "I watched the footage twice." He paused and folded his hands, watching her. "I wanted to see how you handled it." "Handled it?" she repeated, bewildered. "You stayed calm," he said simply. "You didn't scream. You didn't leave the child alone. You didn't blame or make excuses. You apologized. You offered to pay. You were human. That matters." Around them, the diner breathed again, somehow lighter and yet more electric. The mother's phone call had been loud and dramatic, but the man's words were quiet, like a small stamp of approval rolling through the room. Emotions had a memory. Hers remembered humiliation, his remembered gratitude, and in the space between, something else opened. "Mr. Carter," Doug interjected, almost out of habit, "this was an accident." "I know," Thomas said. "I also know a thing or two about how people act under pressure. I run a few dozen locations. I'm always looking for managers who don't crack. I'm looking for people who can hold their ground and their compassion at the same time." Emily swallowed. Her throat felt like a fist. For a second, she saw Jonah in her mind. His cough, his laugh, how he bookmarked his life with mismatched stickers. The words she wanted: nursing school, steady hours, no late-night wipes of oil-stained car seats, hovered behind her ribs like a fragile bird. "You'd hire me?" she asked. Ridiculous, small, like a child asking for extra fries. "I'd like to offer you the manager position at the Carter Diner on Maple Street," he said. "It's a different county, but it comes with benefits, and Thomas Carter doesn't offer benefits lightly." He smiled now, a twist of humor and something else, like warmth. "Also, I'd like to pay for your nursing course if you'll let me. Consider it an investment." The diner made a sound that was almost collective inhalation. Emily could not pull the words from her head fast enough. "I can't. Mr. Carter, I can't accept something like that. I ruined someone's morning." "You didn't," Thomas interrupted. "You made a mistake, and you owned it. That's rare." "The mother—" He hesitated. "She was frightened." "You acted like a human being. That, in my experience, is what makes a good manager, and it's what makes a good nurse." Doug nearly smacked his forehead, eyes bright. "Boss, are you serious?" Thomas nodded. "I'm serious, but I want someone who wants the job." "Do you want it, Emily?" She thought of Jonah's cough, of the textbook, with its dog-eared margin about patient care, of the post-it deadline that was a sad little promise. She thought about pride and shame, tangled like two ropes. "Yes," she said quietly, "I want it." The mother, who had been lingering outside in the doorway for a moment, as if the situation hadn't yet decided what to be, looked back. She'd been on the phone, her face calm now, chastened by the reality that not every moment of indignation gets applause. Sophie, peeking over her mother's shoulder, waved at Emily an embarrassed little wave, as if apologizing in a child's way. Thomas turned his attention to the mother with a soft, professional patience. "If you'd like, we'll cover the medical bill," he said, producing a card from his wallet, "and we'll follow up to make sure Sophie is okay." The mother's face crumpled into something like relief and apology at once. "Thank you," she said small. She's okay. I'm sorry, She trailed off, caught between pride and the relief of being heard. Emily thought she might cry then, but the eyes of the people around her steadied her. Instead, she laughed, a short, incredulous thing that felt like the first thaw. Doug clapped her on the back like a person who had been waiting for this day for you. Marcy smiled like someone who knew late-night shift, struggles, and had been silently rooting for her. "So, when do you start?" Thomas asked. "Tomorrow," Emily said, before she could talk herself out of it. Dawn was a generous thing in her chest. He handed her a business card with the address on it and a name. Personnel, Caroline, on the back. He'd scribbled a note. Nursing fee, approved. Call me if you have any questions. When he left, the room returned to its rhythm, but the rhythm had changed. Conversations resumed, but they were edged now with a glow like embers. Mr. Donnelly resumed his crossword, but his shoulders were less hunched. Marcy jokingly elbowed Emily and said, "Don't you dare get the fancy badge on me, manager lady." The nurse group offered congratulations, each in their own way, and one of them slipped Emily a pamphlet about evening classes. "We take shifts," one told her. "You'll make it." That night, Emily went home to Jonah and set the business card on the table like an offering. Jonah flopped on the couch and chewed the corner of a comic book. "Did anything happen?" he asked. "Something good," she said, and tried to explain adult things. How a mistake could turn into a miracle. How a stranger could see something in you that you had trouble seeing in yourself. Jonah listened seriously, as if these were instructions he could pocket for later. The first day at the Maple Street Diner was a flurry of new pins and a clipboard, heavy with schedules. Emily learned how Thomas liked the meeting cadence and his customer service philosophy. Treat people as if you might need them one day. She learned the manager's quick ways to smooth a burned pancake crisis, and the softer ways of talking to someone who needed to be heard. She stood in front of a staff of faces who would now take orders and dish out lives, and she felt an uncommon steadiness settle in her chest. The nursing course began in October. The tuition payment came like a wrapped promise, a simple wire transfer that dissolved her fear over privacy and possibilities. She carried her thick, expensive textbook home like a trophy, its spine a small, stubborn thing. Jonah cheered at every page she turned. He was proud of the way their mornings had shifted, even if it meant eggs for dinner some nights. Months later, she was still a manager, still floaty with a new competence that had nothing to do with the title and everything to do with the knowledge that one moment, one awkward, humiliating, terrible, beautiful moment had shifted her life's axis. Sophie's mom came in once, this time with Sophie and an awkward apology that Emily accepted like a gift. They exchanged a small smile and a wave. Thomas visited on a slow Tuesday and nodded at Emily across the room, a small, almost private congratulations that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with recognition.